What is the EU? Just an economic bloc? What if the EU guaranteed minimum wages, pensions, a life of dignity? We, the Socialists and Democrats, are aiming to build a truly social union.
Ma cos'è la sinistra?
The resolution is adopted.
I'm talking about that here today in Brussels with Agnes Jongerius, a trade unionist from the Netherlands and an MEP in our political group. Agnes, what is the social union?
It's about protecting people from the challenges of our time. It's about protection. It's the reason why we proclaimed the European Pillar of Social Rights, because we said people should have a life in dignity, with fair wages, with access to all kinds of public services, with access to social security, and with equal treatment. And the European Pillar of Social Rights translated a directive on adequate minimum wages, a directive on equal pay for men and women, and a protection of workers for working with dangerous substances, because we don't want people to become ill from their work. If a Deliveroo biker at the moment gets an accident while delivering the meal to the client, he's not protected or she's not protected. And at this moment we are trying to close that loophole in our social system by saying every worker deserves basic social protection. That's on our plate at the moment.
And why is this like an EU issue? Why is this not something that we should focus on nationally?
There is, of course, for a long time, a concentration of the European project on only economic activities, the internal market. But if you have an internal market, while you're not protecting the workers, then it's clear that in a labor market or in any market with a fierce competition, employers, companies are looking for how can I reduce my cost by paying my workers as less as possible and contribute as less as possible to the welfare systems and taxation. So if you really want to function the internal market properly and working for everyone, we also need to have these basic social rules, because otherwise it will be competition at the cost of the fate of just ordinary workers.
A race to the bottom.
A race to the bottom because internal market rules are being considered of more importance than the social rules. We think social rules should be at the same level. Economy is for the workers. It's not for the profit of the shareholders. They had enough in the last years. It's now time to get even and give workers their fair share.
Just talking about giving workers their fair share, do you think we're going to get towards that?
It is an uphill struggle, but we can win this. And I think we can win this while keep explaining that an internal market which doesn't deliver for ordinary people will lose the support of citizens in Europe. If only companies, if only shareholders are profiting from this internal market and the workers not, then people are saying, I'm turning my back to this European project. While if we work together in a good way, also on social issues, we can fight this race to the bottom, we can fight exploitation. And I think it's clear, given for instance that truck drivers from Kazakhstan, Belarus, far from the European market, working on the European labor market for Polish companies driving in the Netherlands and Germany, they were exploited because the companies made use of the loopholes in the system, and they had to be on strike for more than 6 weeks on a parking place in Germany near Frankfurt. We don't want this. We don't want a labor market, an internal market at the cost of the expectations and dreams of ordinary people. So if you want to stop the race to the bottom, we have to combine forces also on the social issues. And yes, it's not always easy. And yes, there are also companies who say, social rules, big and administrative burden, we don't want this.
Yeah.
We want quick and dirty competition. But quick and dirty competition at the expense of workers, that's not fair.
It's not just us working on this in the Parliament. National governments are also involved, and especially our national governments. We spoke to Spain's Deputy Prime Minister, Teresa Ribera, and we asked her, do we currently have a social union?
Doing progress. I think that it is good what we have achieved in this mandate of the Commission, but I think that we need to do much more. I think that we have understood to what extent it is important that citizens feel that they are Europeans, because Europe is an idea of progress, solidarity and equity. It is impossible to think on fairness and equity without taking into consideration environment and values linked to ecosystems. And there is this dimension of the social union of Europe connected to the green union of Europe that are part of what we are trying to push forward in the Spanish presidency of the European Union. I think that we need to think and to craft carefully how we create opportunities, and this means social services that do work, social policies that do work, capacity to ensure access to the benefits of water, resilience to climate, dealing with energy and dealing with skills and innovation and employment. And this means that we need to combine the traditional social policies with the economic policies and the green policies.
Do you think we have a social union at the moment, and do you think we have a genuine, strong will do you think we can be proud of the social Europe we've built so far?
I think we can be proud, and we need to be proud, because if it hasn't been for us, the social pillar wouldn't have come into practice. And if it hasn't been for us and also our governmental leaders like Costa, Leuven, who keep pushing for this, we would not have come so far in this previous period. But on the other hand, we are not there yet. So we made rules around equal pay, men and women, protection of workers against dangerous substances. We have made rules and regulations around minimum wages, but there is much more to be done. The social pillar by itself is also containing a variety of issues. Also, for instance, affordable housing, access to social security, good public services, education for all young people, and we are not there yet. So with the social pillar, with the achievements we made so far, it's not time to just sit and lay back, but it's time to sit and continue the fight. I think we have the reality on our side that if the internal market is not completed with a social union, things will get out of track. But we need to keep pushing, yes, indeed.
Austerity kills, and we're convinced that we can't go back to that. I asked Esther Lynch, the leader of ETUC, if austerity is over.
The real danger we have at the moment is that austerity is going to come back. We already see governments with trial runs, whether it's pension ages, whether it's taking payments away from families with children, whether it's the calls to make sure that unions can't bargain, can't go on strike. So very far from being over, all the signs are that there's a real threat that austerity is going to make a comeback. That's why it's so important, the discussions that are going to happen in the European Parliament between now and the end of the year. What we need to make sure is that the economic rules do not require member states not to invest in industrial policy, or we need to make sure that member states can invest, so that they can invest for a just transition, so they can invest in schools, so they can invest in hospitals, everything that's needed to make Europe genuinely competitive. What we need is investment for that. So we have the possibility for a social Europe. Working together, we saw that we managed to have legislation to increase minimum wages, a threshold of decency, to make sure that there's 80% of the workers in Europe are going to be covered by a collective agreement, means that pay will be fairer, conditions will be more decent. So there's lots of possibilities for there to be a social Europe, but it really comes down to who the electorate will vote for next year, because next year what we need is a parliament of politicians fully committed to delivering a fair Europe for working people, their families and communities.
Are you on guard for a return to austerity, and is there anything we can do to prevent it?
I share the fears of Esther Lynch, because, like I said before, there are people who think, enough social, now it's time for business as usual, and have harsh rules for all the member states. And if we don't give room for social investment and for social protection of workers, an emphasis only on the budgetary rules will lead to a new emphasis on austerity, and we can't have that. Yeah. The main thing we can do about it is, of course, winning the elections. In the new European elections, we have to fight for a strong position of the Social Democrats, because we are fighting for this agenda, and we need to be strong in the Parliament to make this fight also a success.
Thanks so much for your time. We're going to conclude with the words of John D. Podesta, Senior Advisor for Clean Energy Innovation and Implementation in Biden's White House. He spoke recently at an S&D event that we had on building the social union in Brussels. So we'll finish with John Podesta's words. Thanks so much for joining us, Agnes.
Thank you.
We're feeling the urgency of the climate crisis like never before in the U.S. We've had devastating fires in Hawaii, catastrophic flooding in the Northeast, extreme heat and drought in the Southwest, and Hurricane Idalia in the Southeast just in the past month. And of course, this summer, people across Europe have experienced scorching heat waves, devastating fires in the places my grandparents came from, flooding and landslides. The climate crisis is truly an existential threat. It's already here. That means we have to seize the moment of peril and turn it into opportunity. That's what we're trying to do with the IRA. It's time to jump in with both feet. For the U.S., that meant passing historic climate investments through the Inflation Reduction Act. The law is already accelerating our transition to clean energy. It's putting us on a path to reach our national target of cutting emissions by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. Just by way of comparison, that's essentially on an apples-to-apples basis equivalent of a 55% reduction that Europe is trying to achieve. Our mission was inspired by Europe's leadership on climate through laws like the Green Deal. We hope to inspire even more action both here in the United States, in Europe, and around the world, and make it easier for other nations to achieve their goals.
Ma cos'è la sinistra?
Che significa? The resolution is adopted.